welcome to the deep dive. Today we are going to be exploring kind of an unusual piece. It's a fictional dialogue between George Carlin, a bus driver named Miguel, and God.
Wow.
And they're hanging out in heaven's waiting room,
Okay.
which is described as being about as exciting as, your local DMV.
All right.
And they're discussing U.S. border policies.
Interesting combination.
Yeah. What I thought was so striking is, obviously the author using satire to tackle such a,
Heavy.
weighty topic. Yeah.
Yeah, and setting it in a very mundane, almost bureaucratic version of heaven.
Yeah.
I think that allows for some really sharp commentary on earthly affairs.
Yeah, and it's so classic Carlin,
Well,
right?
yeah.
Like finding the humor in the
Absolutely. Finding humor in the mundane.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like when he gripes about heaven smelling too, quote, clean, or asks,
Right.
no pastrami in the afterlife. What's the point?
Exactly. That's what makes this dialogue so clever. It uses humor to draw you in, but then it kind of hits you with these profound observations about the human condition and about.
It's funny because you have, so we got Carlin
Yeah.
dressed in his, usual black suit,
Sure.
sitting next to Miguel, a bus driver who's still in his work uniform, looking a bit bewildered, I think, by the whole afterlife situation.
Of course. Yeah.
And then God appears,
Right.
not with a heavenly choir,
Yeah.
but looking rather tired and burdened with paperwork.
Yeah. It's such a brilliant way to kind of subvert expectations, right? You expect God to be this, all-powerful being, but here he is complaining about staffing issues and the endless paperwork involved in, getting people into heaven. It almost makes you sympathize with the divine being.
And then they dive into, the heart of the matter, which is U.S. border policies.
Yeah.
And God's describing Trump's policies as a logistical nightmare, which I found really interesting.
It's more than interesting. It's a really powerful statement.
Yeah.
By having God express his frustration over these policies, I think the author is very subtly kind of critiquing the reach of earthly power structures.
Yeah.
Even heaven's bureaucracy isn't immune to the ripple effects of human decisions.
It really makes you think about that interconnectedness of everything, right?
Absolutely.
Like if even heaven is impacted by what happens on earth, it just emphasizes how much our actions matter.
Absolutely. And it's not just God who's impacted by this.
Right.
Miguel, the bus driver, offers this really interesting firsthand perspective on the human cost of these policies. He describes, witnessing families being separated and children crying as he drives along the border.
It's heartbreaking. It really injects a dose of, reality.
Oh, absolutely.
Into this. Carlin even chimes in, questioning the rationale behind these policies.
It's interesting, Carlin's cynicism here. It's like he's using satire almost to point out the absurdity of fearing everyday people like Miguel, who are just trying to make a better life for themselves.
It's like he's saying, why should regular Americans fear someone like Miguel who just wants to work hard and provide for his family?
Exactly. It challenges that whole us versus them narrative that we see so often surrounding immigration.
And I love how Miguel, despite what he's seen, he still maintains this faith in humanity.
Oh, yeah.
He reminds everyone, there's still good in the world. People who choose kindness and compassion over fear.
And that simple statement, there is good too, kind people who help. It's so powerful. It's a reminder that even in the face of adversity, of systemic challenges, hope and individual acts of kindness still persist.
And then God emphasizes that ripple effect of those acts of kindness.
Yeah.
Suggesting that even small gestures can have a profound impact.
Absolutely.
It's a message that resonates on such a personal level, especially when you consider the scale of these complex issues.
What's fascinating to me is how the dialogue kind of juxtaposes the humor with these moments of genuine emotion and insight.
Right.
It creates a really dynamic experience for the listener.
Right.
Prompting laughter one moment and then deep reflection the next.
You're right. It's like the author knew they couldn't just hit us over the head with, these heavy topics. They needed the humor to make it palatable.
Exactly.
To keep us engaged.
Yeah.
And it works. It works brilliantly.
It does, and I think it also speaks to the power of satire as a tool for social commentary.
Yeah.
It allows us to explore these complex issues
Yes.
in a way that's thought-provoking but also entertaining.
And that's only the first part of the conversation. There's so much more to unpack here, especially when it comes to the dialogue's kind of critique of power structures
Yeah.
and the systems that perpetuate these issues.
Yeah, definitely.
But we'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah. It's fascinating how this dialogue manages to kind of encapsulate all these different perspectives on immigration.
Well,
You
yeah.
have, Carlin with his trademark cynicism kind of highlighting the absurdity of the whole situation.
Yeah.
And then you have Miguel representing, the human face of immigration, the families, the dreams, the very real struggles.
Right. And God, too.
And God, yeah.
Like, he's almost like a stand-in for the average person who's trying to navigate this complex bureaucracy.
Yo.
Like, I remember when he said getting into heaven was like going through airport security.
Oh, yeah. That's the beauty of it. It takes this seemingly untouchable figure and makes him so relatable, even a bit exasperated by the systems in place.
Right.
I think it's a clever way to critique those limitations of power. Even divine power. Even divine power. And it also reminds us that these policies, like regardless of where you stand, on the political spectrum, they have real-world consequences.
Real-world consequences,
And the dialogue doesn't shy away from that, especially when God mentions, detention centers and military bases being used to house people.
Right, and those details really ground the conversation in reality.
Yeah.
Even though it is set in heaven's waiting room. And then you have, like, the Remain in Mexico policy being applied to heaven itself. It's almost comical.
It is.
But in a way that makes you think.
Yeah, it's satire at its finest, right?
Exactly.
Like using humor to highlight the absurdity of a situation.
Yeah. It forces you to confront
the
implications of these policies,
Yeah.
even if you're not experiencing them directly.
Right.
And I think that's where Miguel's perspective becomes so crucial.
Yes.
He's the one who has seen these policies play out firsthand.
Right. He's driven those buses. He's witnessed the families being torn apart. He's heard the children crying.
Yeah, his voice adds, I think, this really important emotional weight to the conversation.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder that behind the political rhetoric, there are real people whose lives are being deeply impacted.
Exactly. It humanizes the issue in a way that, statistics and news reports often fail to do.
Right.
It's no longer this abstract debate.
Yeah.
It's about, families and dreams and the pursuit of a better life.
And despite witnessing all that pain, he still holds on to hope. It's such a powerful message, especially in the context of this dialogue,
It is. Remember when he said, there is good to kind people, people who help.
Yes, that line really resonated with me too.
It's just this reminder that even in the midst of all this darkness, there's still light.
And that even small acts of kindness can make a difference.
Totally.
God even chimes in on that.
Right.
Emphasizing that ripple effect of compassion,
It's like a call to action, I think. Almost urging the listener to consider their own role in creating a more just and compassionate world. And it's not about these grand gestures.
Yeah.
It's about, those everyday acts of kindness that can have a profound impact.
And it ties back to, again, that idea of interconnectedness.
Right, absolutely.
Which I think the dialogue keeps circling back to. If even heaven is grappling with the consequences of earthly policies. It just suggests that our actions have a far greater reach than we might realize.
It dismantles this notion that we can somehow separate ourselves from the suffering of others, that we can simply build walls and pretend the problems on the other side don't exist.
And it's not just about physical walls either, right?
Exactly.
They're also about the mental and emotional walls that we build that prevent us from, connecting with others who are different from us.
You're absolutely right. It's about recognizing our shared humanity.
Understanding that we're all part of this intricate web of life. And that our actions, no matter how small, have the power to create positive change.
I love how the dialogue doesn't shy away from the darker aspects of human nature, like fear and the pursuit of power. But it also offers this glimmer of hope.
It does.
Through characters like Miguel and even God himself.
It's that balance, that interplay between the cynicism and the hope
Yes.
that I think makes this dialogue so compelling.
Right.
It's a really realistic portrayal of the world we
Yeah.
live in, right?
Yeah.
Acknowledging the challenges, but also reminding us of the potential for good.
When I first read this dialogue, I was struck by Carlin's line at the end about all of them being essential workers.
Oh, yeah.
Even in heaven.
Right.
It just seemed like a throwaway joke at first.
Right.
But it's so much more than that, isn't it?
It is.
It brings us back to this idea of interconnectedness.
And the fact that we all have a role to play, regardless of where we find ourselves.
Absolutely.
Like, God has his heavenly duties.
Yeah.
Carlin continues to make people laugh.
Yeah.
And Miguel, well, he's still connecting people, even if it's just
Yeah.
to the best taco stand in the afterlife.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, right?
Yeah.
If everyone is essential, then everyone's work has value.
Yes.
It challenges us to think about our own contributions.
Yeah.
How we fit into this grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
And how we can use our own talents and passions to make a positive impact.
Right. And it also highlights this idea that, like, even in the afterlife, there's still work to be done.
Right.
Challenges to face.
Yeah.
Opportunities to grow.
Opportunities to grow, right.
Yeah.
It suggests that our journey of, learning and evolving and connecting with others continues, even after we leave this earthly realm.
That's a powerful thought.
Yeah.
It makes the idea of heaven less about, pearly gates and harps and
Right.
more about, like, a continuation of our human experience.
Right, with all of it.
With all its
Complexities and possibilities.
Exactly. But before we get too lost in the existential implications of heaven's taco stands,
Right.
let's bring it back to our listener
Yeah.
and the key takeaways from this dialogue.
You're right. It's easy to get caught up in the humor and the fantastical setting.
Oh, yeah.
But at its core, this dialogue is such a powerful commentary on the human condition.
Absolutely. I think it challenges us to confront those
Wow.
uncomfortable truths about power, about prejudice,
Yeah.
about the systems that perpetuate injustice.
Yeah.
But it also offers that glimmer of hope, reminding us that even those small acts of kindness
Yeah.
can have a ripple effect.
Yeah.
And that our individual choices
Yes.
can contribute to a more just and compassionate world.
It's a call to action disguised as a humorous conversation
Yes.
in heaven's waiting room.
And that's what makes it so brilliant. We've talked about the humor and the satire, the very real consequences of border policies.
Right.
But there's, I think, one more layer to this dialogue that we need to explore.
All right.
It's subtle,
Yeah.
but it's there,
All right.
like a critique of power structures,
Interesting.
both earthly and, well, divine.
I see. Yeah.
You see it right from the start, right?
Yeah.
With God being portrayed as this kind of beleaguered bureaucrat.
Yeah.
He's not this all-powerful being
Right.
dictating from on high.
Yeah.
He's grappling with paperwork, staffing shortages,
Right.
the sheer volume of souls trying to navigate
Right.
this complex system.
Yeah. It's almost like the author is saying that, like, even God is
Mm.
limited by the systems we create.
Right.
It's a powerful statement about the reach of human influence,
Yeah.
even on a cosmic scale,
Yeah. And then you have Carlin,
Yeah,
always the rebel,
of course.
questioning everything and everyone,
Right.
whether
Yeah.
he's making jokes about the afterlife
Yeah.
or challenging the logic behind, fear-based policies.
Yeah.
He represents that voice of dissent,
Yeah.
the one who refuses to just accept things blindly.
Right. Carlin's cynicism in this context
Mhm.
becomes a form of social commentary, right? It's not just about making people laugh.
Right.
It's about exposing the absurdity
Yeah.
of the systems we've built and the justifications we use
Right.
to uphold them.
Yeah, and then there's Miguel,
Right.
the everyman, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The one who's caught in the crosshairs of these policies.
Right.
He's not a politician or a pundit.
Yeah.
He's a bus driver who's seen firsthand
Yeah.
the human cost of these decisions.
Miguel's role is so crucial in this dialogue.
Yeah.
Because he really grounds the conversation in reality.
Yeah,
He represents, kind of the silent majority,
right,
the people whose lives are directly impacted by these policies,
right.
but whose voices are so often drowned out by all the political noise.
It's his, like, quiet resilience,
Yeah.
his unwavering belief in the good of humanity that I think offers, like, a glimmer of hope in this
Yeah.
otherwise kind of bleak conversation.
It's exactly, even in the face of all this adversity,
Yeah.
he chooses to see the light.
Yeah.
He reminds us that compassion and kindness, they
Yeah.
still exist,
Yeah.
even in the darkest of times.
So if we connect all this back to our listener, like, what does it all mean?
Yeah.
Why should they care about this fictional conversation
Right.
between a comedian, a bus driver, and God.
Because it's not just a story,
Right.
it's a reflection of our own reality,
Yeah,
right? It's a
yeah.
call to action, urging all of us to examine the systems we live in,
Yeah.
the power structures that shape our lives,
Yeah.
the choices we make every day.
It encourages us to question the status quo, to challenge authority,
Absolutely.
to recognize, our own agency in creating
Yeah.
a more just and compassionate world.
It reminds us that even small acts of kindness,
Yes.
they can have that ripple effect.
Yeah.
Our individual choices,
Yeah.
they matter.
Yeah.
And we have the power to make a difference.
And it highlights that idea that we're all interconnected, right?
Yeah.
That our actions have consequences
Yes.
that extend far beyond ourselves.
Whether you're a cynical comedian or a hardworking bus driver or even God himself,
Right.
we're all part of this intricate web of life.
And maybe, just maybe, if we can learn to laugh at the absurdity of it all, right? To find common ground in our shared humanity.
Yeah.
And to embrace the power of kindness.
Yeah.
Maybe we can start to unravel those systems
Right.
that perpetuate injustice and build a world that reflects,
Yeah.
the best of who we are.
That's the beauty of this dialogue, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't give us those easy answers,
Right.
but it sparks a conversation.
Yes.
It prompts us to ask those difficult questions, to
Yeah.
challenge our assumptions, and to consider new possibilities. And sometimes that's
Yeah.
all it takes to start a revolution.
That's our deep dive for today.
I know.
We hope you've enjoyed this journey into the unexpected.
Absolutely.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep